Well, I'm going to sit up here mainly because we are recording this. There's at least 10 people that are very interested and can't be here, so I said that we would record it and make it available. Actually, some of them are up in one of the classrooms. So I'm going to open in a word of prayer, and then we'll kind of show you what we're going to do tonight and answer questions, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, Father in heaven, we want to thank you and praise your holy name and just ask your blessing. Lord, we do start off by just, first of all, thank you for the privilege of even having possibly the opportunity to go to the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And, Lord, for the privilege of having a pilgrimage. So, Lord, we ask that you would guide us, and, Lord, that you provide all things. And, Lord, we also thank, Lord Jesus, that you will, Lord, that we just pray a blessing over Jerusalem and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Lord. So we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Jesus. And give thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. So, kind of how this is going to go is I want to basically share just kind of my personal devotional thoughts in regards to this. And then I'm going to show you, I believe, 16 little 45-second snippets of my trip last April. And these snippets are locations that we will likely go to. There are many others than these, but I felt it would give you a great taste. Now, some of you saw a little bit of that on Sunday when I showed, the Chorazin and Getty and what was the other one I showed? But anyways, there were so many. We visited the Bema, at Chorazin, and we visited 50 archaeological sites in 14 days. I want to tell you, we will not be doing that. So it's just a bit much. So the verse the Lord gave to me on that trip, going on that trip, is out of Psalms 84, and it's really simple verse out of, and it says when talking about pilgrimage in Psalms 84, it says they have set their heart on pilgrimage, and it is talking about going to Jerusalem. And if I could give any encouragement to you that if you're considering going on this trip, and I'm going to talk about the nature of the trip in a minute, that you would consider setting your heart on pilgrimage. That the reason that I'm going is my heart is to do a pilgrimage to Jerusalem and to the Holy Land. And there's a reason for that. It will set your heart up to allow in faith to receive all that God wants to do for you on that trip. I mean, we know that we are the temple of God. His presence no longer resides in the temple. It doesn't exist anymore, the old temple. It resides in his temple, his people. And so we bring his presence everywhere. But there is a special, if you'd want to say, designation, special place when it comes to the land of Israel because of the promise of Abraham. And it can't, no pictures, no description, no video will do it justice. Only being there. And I think it's important that it's a privilege to go. That most people don't. And it's not, aren't you glad it's not part of one of our tenets of our faith? In order to get to heaven, you have to go there. So it's not. So it is a privilege to go. And it is a study tour. This isn't a tourist trip. It's a study tour. We're going to study the Bible and look at the Bible. We're going to let the Lord bring alive aspects of his word that cannot be understood without understanding the place that it occurred. And there's, as someone mentioned about even seeing En-Gedi on Sunday, and how En-Gedi they didn't envision it being the way it was. And suddenly the Psalms that are written about, the Lord is my rock and my fortress, where he probably wrote them in this rock fortress, brings a new sense of understanding to the, if you'd want to say, the mood of the text. So without any further ado, I'm going to show you, and I describe where I'm at in all 16 of these videos. But I wanted to give you, and by the way I did this, I actually tweeted these when I was in Israel. So these were, my Twitter account, I actually posted these. That's why they're short. They have to be 45 seconds. And it also gave me almost a video journal of my trip. And so when I say, I'm here at, and then I'm going to say, I'm here at, I say that again and again, it's because I'm doing this for my social media feed. So Shane, without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and show those 16, and then we'll go right into the rest of the meeting. We are here at Beersheba, which is the founder of this area, this city, as it known in ancient times, is Abraham, the father of our faith. And the truth is that he called it Beersheba. Bera means water, Shiva means 7, and it's the place where he made a covenant with Abimelech, the Philistine king, and with 7 lambs. But it's also a place, this is where a lot of things happened, where Hagar and Sarah's conflict, where well, I'm up here in Masada. If you don't know what Masada is was the last stronghold of the Jewish revolt of about 70 AD. The truth is that this is a very sad place. It was built by Herod the Great, but used by the Zealots to withstand the Roman legions. They all ended up committing suicide. But spiritually, this is a reflection of the last vestige of what Jesus prophesied when he wept over Jerusalem. This is what was left at what he was saying at the destruction, that God's heart was not this. Okay, I'm in En-Gedi. En-Gedi is an oasis that has been confirmed that it is the place where David took refuge. When King Saul heard about David, he sent an army of 3,000 coming up that valley right there. And it's up in these cliffs that David hid. And it's also where he cut Saul's road. And I can imagine him being afraid. And he possibly wrote Psalms 18 when it said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer, my shield, my salvation, and my stronghold." That his faith was in God, in spite of the fact that he had a strategic location. And so this is an amazing archaeological location, and the Bible is alive. We're here in Qumran, where we have down here Cave 4, where in 1947 a little shepherd boy found the famous archaeological discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is also really where the Essene community, which is a religious sect that fled the corruption of Jerusalem, they believed in their heart they were preparing the way of the Lord. Many believe John the Baptist came from this group. When he baptized Jesus just down the way, Jesus likely went into this wilderness and was tempted by the devil. But in that path, those caves was Isaiah 40, verse 8. Grass withers, but the word of the Lord lasts forever. So I'm here at Caesarea by the sea. This is such a crucial city in ancient times. In the book of Acts, it's recorded that it is here that the gospel broke into the Gentile population. In this location, this is an amphitheater. It's currently being used. You can hear people in the background. But over here, in the stage right over here, is actually where King Agrippa declared himself God, as recorded in the book of Acts, and God struck him right then, and he died. So this is an amazing place of Caesarea by the sea, as evidenced in the book of Acts. So I'm here in this is where the palace at Caesarea by the sea. This is where Paul would have come before Felix and had his trial, or at least before he was sent to Rome. But what's more important is what they found here. They found an inscription declaring Pontius Pilate as the governor of this region, which is the only archaeological evidence of the existence of Pontius Pilate, who of course oversaw Jesus' trial and confirms that he was in fact the governor of this area, Roman governor. So I'm here in Dan, and Dan is part of the northern part of Israel where the tribe of Dan actually ended up settling. And this is the city of Dan, ancient city, was destroyed in 722 BC by the Assyrians. But when the kingdom split, a man named Jeroboam set up a golden calf right over there. And this was an altar over here. The truth is, this is where Jeroboam ruled from the city of Dan. And here's archaeological evidence of the Old Testament. And he set that calf up because he wanted to please the people. Never a good thing to just please people. Please God. We're in the ancient Canaanite city of Lesh, recorded in Genesis 14, and it's here where Abraham came to really figure out what happened to Lot when he was captured. So I am standing where Father Abraham stood. And so just an amazing reality of history right here. This city predates Abraham, and Abraham was here. I'm in Hazor, which is recorded in Joshua chapter 11, that Joshua conquered this city and he burned it to the ground. There is evidence throughout this archaeological site of that torching, as it is right here. Unfortunately, the Canaanites rebuilt this city and became a nemesis of Israel, as it's recorded in Judges chapter 4, that the Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and he sold them to the hands of Jabin the Canaanite king, who reigned in Hazor. And it is from here 900 chariots went out with an army and sought to destroy the Israelites again in the book of Judges. But the woman of God, Deborah, God used her to deliver the children of Israel. I'm here in Kürsi, and this is a 4th century Byzantine church, and it's believed to be the historic site where Jesus cast out the legions from the man, recorded in Mark chapter, several passages, Matthew 8 and Mark chapter 4. It's here where he, in essence, showed his authority over the demonic realm. The man wanted to follow him, but he sent him away. Later on, Jesus returned, but the testimony of that man resulted in 4,000 men and their families showing up and listening to Jesus, and the miracle of the feeding of the loaves and fishes occurred for the second time. Okay, I am standing overlooking the Valley of Elah, which is where David and Goliath would have fought their battle. Israelites would have been up on that mountain over there. Where I'm sitting right here, or standing right here, is where the Philistines were. Unfortunately, there is no historical lookout or anything. We're actually at a gas station. That is where that battle between David and Goliath occurred, and another evidence of the Bible coming alive here in the Holy Land. So I'm here in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Possibly that's where Jesus... Hey, this is Yanni, our tour guide, and he's adding some joy to this kind of little stressed moment, to be on understatement. You have quite a few different denominations that are vying for their position in this place. Is not an example of our faith, unfortunately. It's just bricks and mortars. So anyways, this is where historically they say Jesus was buried, and Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life." This is merely a hole in the ground, but potential resting place of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. It's an honor to be here. There's a good chance this was his tomb, but he's not here. Amen.
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 Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life." This is merely a hole in the ground, but potential resting place of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. It's an honor to be here. There's a good chance this was his tomb, but he's not here. Amen.
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 Jesus said, "I am." A Okay, so I'm here at the city of David. As you can see, I actually found a Seahawks shirt that says Seahawks in Hebrew, so for you 12s out there. But actually what I'm pointing out is 1 Samuel, or 2 Samuel chapter 5 mentions David taking the city of the Jebusites, Jerusalem, and they have found down there what they think is the fortress, and the pottery matches the date of that. So it's that area is where David built his fortress, and it's where the whole idea of the city of Zion started. So it all started there. So I'm on the south side of the Temple Mount. These steps here would have been steps. They are called the steps of ascent, and so they're not the 12 sections, and they would literally read a psalm before they would ascend to the next one, and that's where the songs of ascent and psalms. I'm going to read one. How good and pleasant when brothers live in unity. It's like the precious oil running down the beard of Aaron. It is like, is it the dew of Hermon were fallen on Mount Zion. For there the Lord commands his blessings, even life evermore. And so this is ascent. At the base of the Temple Mount, I say these words from Psalms 122. I rejoice for those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing in your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. There are those, that is where the tribes go up, and the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord, according to the statute giving to Israel. There are the thrones of judgment. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within their walls and security in their citadels for the sake of my brothers and friends. I will say, peace be with you for the sake of the house of the Lord our God. I will seek your... So hopefully that gives you kind of an overview of kind of what kind of places we'll visit. Bobby? I never asked you this, but you have been on this tour before, twice, right? Once. You want to come up here and just share your thoughts on the impact it had on your faith and yourself?
Thanks, Mike. I didn't have anything prepared. I didn't know he was going to call on me. But I went a year earlier than Mike went, so a year ago, last May. Man, what a fantastic trip. I mean, we saw a lot of the country. The videos are great, but they're just a small snapshot, and there's a lot of places that we went to that weren't in the videos. We saw the place where Moses struck the rock twice. We went to the Red Sea, we went to the Dead Sea, we went on a boat ride in the Sea of Galilee. We went up to Golan Heights. We overlooked where the road to Damascus likely was. It's like when I read the Bible today, it's different. It's still the Word, but now I have a lot of visuals in my mind of the places that we went to that they're talking about. It changed my way of looking at the night sky when I looked at the night sky that Abraham may have looked at when he received the promise of to be the father of a nation that is as many stars in the sky or sand on the beach, however it was said, but under the same sky at the same location that he was at. It was an experience. Now, I was baptized here for the first time a few years ago, but I got baptized in the Jordan River as well, and it was every bit as meaningful and powerful as the first time that I was baptized. So I would encourage anybody that's got any inclination to go or to experience it, do it. We only live once, and like Mike said, it's not required. It's a privilege, and I want to go again. So,
Marilyn?
So I had the great opportunity to go with Mike, and the thing that I came away with was a fresh understanding of somehow when I was reading the Bible earlier, I had this idea like that when it says that they were wandering in the wilderness, that they were the only people there. But when we were there, everybody from all the surrounding regions would have been traveling the same paths that the nation of Israel would have been. And it just changes your perspective of, when it says that, you are a peculiar people. They were living out God's commands, being peculiar in the midst of all the other influences of the world around them as well. And it just made me think even more so in our lives today, we are called to be a peculiar people and live out our faith around, even though there's lots of people that disagree. When God gave the commands that he gave, he knew what he was doing to make them stronger, and that was very impressive in me in being there.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. No. When this was my first trip in April, and I've pastored here 20 years. I figured it was a 20-year gift from our congregation to go. I didn't have a huge unction to go. I wanted to go to Haiti and Dominican Republic and Africa, and that's what drove me. So this was really an opportunity. But I really felt like I wanted to give our church the opportunity to go, and those in our community that may. Yeah, go ahead. I am so sorry. I am. Yeah, I think I am. They let me be this week. I know. Mary Jane, it's nice to meet you. I know you're a good person because you have a great sister. So welcome. So I'm sorry, I should have said, my name is Mike Van Proyen, pastor at Kingsway. So no, this would be, I just went the first time. Of course, I'd lived in the Middle East before, but not in Jerusalem or Israel. So I've personally been to 36 different countries. So I've traveled a lot, but I didn't really have a drive to do this. But when we were there, felt kind of an inkling. I received an invitation to consider doing this, and so I'll come back to that in a minute. But thank you for asking that question. Since you didn't know who I was, that was good. I just want to tell you briefly. You're going to get a little flyer here. It just gives you some preliminary information. It's a 14-day trip. Day 1 and day 14 are travel, so it's 13 days in country, or 12 days in country, excuse me. It's November 1st, 2018 through November 14th, 2018. It is a year away, but this is not a cheap trip, so it's important to get a head start, and we have to plan ahead. And so, we're day 2 when we arrive, we'll be in Tel Aviv, and then to Beersheba. What's that? Not quite yet. There's information I want to cover in just a minute. Day 3, we're going to be studying the world of Abraham and the world of in the wilderness of Zin and the Ramon crater. Now, I think that is where Timnah is close to, isn't it? And Timnah is, which is one of my favorite locations, has absolutely no reference in the Bible. It sounds silly, but I wanted to go camping there. Is that where it is? Thank you. But it's where they've been mining copper since the days of Pharaoh. And that's, what's that? And vineyards down in that area. But that particular spot is a national park, and what's significant about it, and which I hope we can go, is this woman from New Zealand. It's like a modern-day monk. Got permission from the Israeli government to build a replica of the tabernacle on that side, near that state park or national park, and on the national park, and she lives there in this little house, this little Kwanzaa hut house, and she basically, you show up, she walks you through the life-size replica size of the tabernacle, and walks you through and then does a Bible study of Christ through the tabernacle, and that it's a very profound experience. So that would probably be in day 3. Day 4 is ancient Advat and Arad and Masada and the Dead Sea. You'll have a chance to swim in the Dead Sea. I didn't. I had too many cuts from Timnah, and I wasn't about to jump in a salty sea with all the cuts that I endured on hiking up a mountain, which, by the way, you don't have to do that. That's just what I chose to do. Then we'll go to En-Gedi, Qumran. There's a couple places that we went that we may not go to. I wish we could go to Kadesh. I don't know if that's going to be an opportunity, but one place we didn't go to was the Wadi at Kelt, and that's the Good Samaritan story. Samuel's tomb, which we did not go to, so that's a new site. The coastal plains of Galilee, which in my views was my favorite portion of the entire trip, was just around the Galilee area, Caesarea, Jezreel Valley, Nazareth, which will actually go to a village recreation, but it's not a recreation because it's a recreation on an archaeological find of a village. So the vineyards are from when Jesus was a little boy. And they have animals there, and they have people dressed in, in the costumes of the day, and then they come in and they serve you lunch, and they serve it the way Jesus would have ate it. And so it's a pretty neat experience. We really asked for that one to happen again, and when you think about when Jesus talks about, I am the vine and you are the branches, and he uses those vineyard illustrations, you could just imagine, and it's not a stretch to imagine this, that the very site that we're looking at, Nazareth was a small village. He would have played near those, the very vineyards that we were standing at. And so that's very, very profound. Matter of fact, jumping into Jerusalem, you'll go and see olive trees that are thousands of years old. That these olive trees were there when Jesus was there. And as Eric mentioned earlier, when I had the video about Chorazin, which is one of the 4 or 5 cities on the Galilee that Jesus ministered to, literally I stood on the bema seat in a synagogue where Jesus would have stood. Some people didn't want to stand there because but I was like, get out of my way. I want to stand where Jesus stood. It's like, in his steps. And then we'll go up to the Golan Heights, Hazor, which you saw, Dan, and Caesarea Philippi and Bethsaida. The Sea of Galilee will be, again, Chorazin and Capernaum. And I'm hoping Magdala again. That was a really quick stop, which I'm sure they'll be able to fit that in. It's worth it. It is an amazing archaeological find that, Mary Magdalene, we think that's her last name. It's Mary from Magdala. And there was a village called Magdala. Well, when the Romans came in to destroy Jerusalem, the little town got word they were coming, and they dismantled the synagogue and hid most of it, and then tried to block the road. And well, they didn't. They were thinking they were going to put it back together, but the truth is, they didn't, and they lost that battle. And the Romans destroyed what was left. And then there was an earthquake and a landslide, and the landslide buried the city of Magdala for a couple thousand years, and nobody knew where it was. So the Catholic Church had purchased that land to build a resort, basically a prayer resort or whatever, and they got ready we did the groundbreaking, kind of like what we did right out here, and there, if you break ground in Israel, it's like, oh, what is underneath us? Because, the Department of Antiquities finds out, you got to stop and you just lost your land if they find something. And so the priest literally prayed this: Lord, let there be nothing underneath us. But if there is, let it be really good. And they hit the town of Magnolia. And they're still excavating it. That was only a couple years ago they found it. And matter of fact, when we went there, that was the first time any of our tour guides had been there. And they say, hey, let's just stop and take a look. And it was like, wow. It was just an amazing, amazing moment. We'll then go to Tel Jericho, which is, I'm hoping that's in the West Bank, and I'm hoping that's that same place we went. I love those Palestinian guys. They were just awesome to be around. And they put on quite a fixin' lunch for us, and I ended up buying a bunch of, buying some glassware for my wife, and we finally showed up because you have it shipped, and you're kind of wondering, is it going to make it? And it did, so intact. That was kind of fun, though. I was playing along. He kept saying how beautiful my wife was. You should buy this. She's so beautiful. She deserves this. And I go, yeah, she does. And so I kind of played along with him, and, I'll give you 2 sets for the price of one. And it's like $200, And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to buy this, but I know where I'm going to get him. And that's at the register for shipping. That's where I get him down. So sure enough, we play this whole act. I'm playing along. We get up to the front. There's like 30 people behind me, okay? And he goes, oh, so this is what's going to cost to go back to the United States. And I go, oh, I'm so sorry. I can't afford that. Oh, okay, well, I'll drop it down. And where does this whole thing go back? Anyways, bottom line is I got my discount. But it was sure fun. And the funny thing is, it was just all an act. It was just fun. So I hope we get to go back there, which, by the way, is literally right next to the ancient city of Jericho, which is just a mound of dirt. But I sure would have liked to got off the bus and just at least stood on it. So since I'll be leading it, I'm going to say to the bus driver, we're not going anywhere. I want to go stand on this. No. Yeah, well, I was disappointed. Yeah. 8,000 years. Yeah. And it's you hear a lot of, let me just say this and go any further, because we'll go to the West Bank, that don't believe everything you hear on the news. Okay? They're peddling their time. I'm just telling you that right up front. If you haven't figured that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. They make money from you watching and spending time watching it so that they can make you feel fearful. That fear is a great driver. We will go nowhere that it is not safe. And it's safer anywhere. It was just safe everywhere we went. And I'd be honest with you, I feel more nervous in parts of Seattle than I do in certainly in parts of Israel that we were at. And I mean, there's places we won't go. And there are places that are probably close to your heart. You wish you could gone. I mean, you can spend months there and not hit everything. But there are places you're going to wish you could have gone. And other people say, yeah, we went there. And it's like, maybe it wasn't the right time to go there. Good example of that for me is Shiloh. I would love to go to Shiloh. But that is not happening. It is not a good place to go right now. So we won't be going there. So that's just, we only go where we can go and just enjoy what the Lord lets us see, and we'll see enough. So we're going to go all the way, we're going to go around Jerusalem area, parts of Bethlehem. Apparently they're going to do more than just the olive wood shop, which was a pretty cool stop. But there's an existing Christian community in Bethlehem that's under a lot of pressure. And so groups, Christian groups and, reputable Christian groups target those businesses with Christian people like us purposely to help support the Christian community in those areas. And so, not that you have to buy from there, but I did, and you'll have that opportunity. Jerusalem, City of David, Israel Museum, Temple Mount, Western Wall, Villa de Rosa, Mount of Olives. We'll go to all that. The Jerusalem that Jesus knew, the Southern Wall, one of my favorite locations, which I don't think, Bobby, you guys did. And I'm noticing that they put on our itinerary, they actually named it Caiaphas's house. Because when we were there in April, I was talking to Mickey, and he said they were on the verge of making a formal declaration that they had found Caiaphas's house. And they hadn't when we were there. So if they're calling it on our itinerary, then they must have made a formal declaration. And why is that important? It's important because it's where Jesus was brought in the middle of the night and brought before Caiaphas, and also where Peter would have denied him. And I won't say any more of that other than when you actually stand there, you're all of a sudden realize your picture of that event is quite different than what it probably was, as far as where people were at. And it adds a different perspective. And then we depart. So that's generally what's going to happen. It's a study tour. So what I mean study tour is I'm really inviting people to come that really want to immerse themselves in the Bible and learn more about the faith that we hold. And so I feel, and why I don't want this just to be a tourist trip, is that I like people that are going to come to be prepared, that they would be ready to come. And so we're going to do a class, and that's going to be in January, and I'm going to ask the people who are going to go to attend that class. Now, if they have to miss a class in here or there, well, obviously that'll happen. But it's a class on the study of ancient Israel, and it will mirror the trip. So much of the backdrop you're going to get even before you get there. And so, because a lot of times we'll be able to do just a survey discussion at a site. Maybe the time won't permit us. So I would like those going to really have already immersed themselves in the backdrop of the different sites that we go. And we also, what will be different, we will also be attending church on once in Jerusalem with a Messianic congregation, and that's being arranged. And let me see, what's the other aspect of this? So one of the things that I talked about was how strenuous our trip was. And I will say for you that it is a walking trip. There are certain sites, and this is probably what will be a little bit different than the trip that, Bobby, that you were on and that I was on. I think there are certain places, and Getty would be a great example, where I don't think everybody has to go up. I mean, and you get off in Getty, and I'm using that as an example. Kadesh is another one. Qumran's really easy because you just get in a tram and you go up. They didn't let any of us hike up or down that. I would probably do the same. I just think there's too much risk involved. I'm not interested in someone getting hurt and then us having to go to the hospital because we have one vehicle. So, places like Qumran, it's not a difficult thing as you go up a tram and you walk around on a plateau. Jerusalem, there's some walking. And several of the sites that do require, and it says here in the thing, be able to walk 1 mile. We're not speed walking, if you're wondering. I speed walk, but we won't. And I just let me finish this thought. So what I want to recommend is what we'll do is like within Getty is like you get off the bus and there's for about a half mile it's just flat and it's got a paved trail, and there's conies and other wildlife as you're going along, and then you get to the base of Engedi, and then it turns into more of a trail. But there's a whole area that's got trees over it, and canopy of trees and benches. And what we'll do is probably do like and I'll work this out, having someone who will do a study down below, and then stay with anybody who wants to stay below, and the rest will go up. And I want to make sure that the tone of this trip is that if someone can't go up one of those distant journeys, that they don't have to, and they're not required to do that. There will be, I would say, if you're going to go, you need to be able to walk a mile that's flat. Be able to just get up and start walking. And if you can just walk anywhere, swim for a mile, you'll be just fine. There you go. So if you can do that, you'll be fine. And if there's the one thing I would say is Jerusalem, it's, you see movies of them fighting on a plateau. I don't know what movie where they city on a hill. It's a city on hills. I said, even when I descend, you're ascending, So that's the one thing. But the buses are great. They take us close as they can get us, and they're just someplace there's just no choice but you have to walk, and we'll just take our time, So that said, your question. No, we probably won't. Yeah, we debated. We thought we were going to go down to the Red Sea, but that's probably not going to happen. We needed. I felt like 14 days was stretching it. We had 14 days in country, so it was 2 extra days. And here's the other thing is that when I was there, when I talked to Yanni, who's the guy that was going like this in the background, his dad was a Foursquare pastor for 50 years, and he ended up moving to Israel, and that's what he does. That's all he does is just tour groups, and they're a small company. And I told him, I said I wanted a Christian group that is well trusted by my peers, and this certainly is a group. But he likes to keep them fairly small. You'll be there, and there'll be tour groups of 4 or 5 buses, 200 people. We're not going to do that. We're going to do no more than 1 bus, and so they really want a minimum of 25 people for the trip, and so I'm looking at it in Israel going, okay, I've got to book this while I'm here, because you got to do it a year in advance. And there's 2 other pastors with me. One, Kai Martin, who pastors the Bothell Foursquare Church, and Dan Bursch, Inglewood, I think is his. Anyways, back over in the Seattle area. And they looked at me and said, hey, our churches, their churches are about 150 or so. I said to them, well, do you think you guys could, commit to 10 each, 10 people in your church? And I said, I feel like we could do, 20, 25, 30, and that we may only get 20, we may only get 15, but if all of us to get 3 of us together, we get to 25, then we can do the minimum. And so we all agreed to do it together. And so that way I didn't feel like I was to take a big risk for the church. That was the thing that I didn't want to do, is take a big leap. And so so we're taking only so many people, and so that's answers that question. Moving on, let's go ahead and pass those out now, hon. You need to prepare to walk, pack light. We'll talk about that as we get closer. For those that attend the LMI History of Ancient Israel class, that will be in January. It's about a 12-week course. And it'll be on Wednesday nights, by the way, during this time period. Read and briefly summarize 2 mission books. Spiritual Warfare by Dean Sherman, and then one to be announced, probably on cross-cultural experiences or relationships. And a great example is you'll find, first of all, tourism is massive industry in Israel, and they serve us pretty well. But you got to understand that their view of life and our view of life is different. You know, you think you're a friend of Israel. Well, they're glad you like them, but they don't think anybody's their friend. And they have 2,000 years of history to prove that. And certainly the last administration evidenced that America wasn't always on their side. So the truth of the matter is it can be a little discouraging if you go and you have a preconceived idea of what someone should be like, and then they're not that way. You're suddenly, well, that's, you know. And the truth is that you can't, you need to train yourself to not think that way. Some of you have been overseas, you know that routine, that not everybody is like America. So anyways, that's we want to help you prepare for that. Tonight we are simply going to ask that if you are thinking about going, that you would sign up. My wife has a sign-up sheet. We want to communicate with you directly. So if you're thinking, if you have an inclination, you don't, this is not a commitment. I'm not asking you to commit to go. But if you're thinking about going, you should sign up tonight. Because that's who I'm going to communicate from this point on with about this trip. And the trip expense, we're estimating at about $4,800. That is airfare, hotel, transportation, tour guides, and virtually every meal except for, I think, a couple lunches. So it's pretty all-inclusive. And the big question mark is the airfare. You know, we say estimate because you know what it's like. So we're thinking we're going to get that in January. We're looking at securing. I'm saying the 15th of January as the non-refundable deposit between $300 to $500. When we went, it was $300. I don't know if it's going to go up, so I just said $300. I can't imagine it going up more than that. And that is what secures your spot. Okay. That if it's at that point you say I'm in, then you put the money down, that $300 to $500, then it's non-refundable and you're in. You got a seat. And, well, of course you got to pay for the rest, but and then there'll be a payment schedule. There'll be a couple markers that we need resources by, but it'll be spread out so that you'll be able to prepare for it. You have a year to prepare for this, and let's see. Am I leaving anything out? That is yet to be determined. My hope is, and this is a big, I'm hoping to build it into that $4,800. But with the estimated cost of the LMI class. The LMI class is, an audit would be $110. So the unknown factor is the airfare. So if I can get it under, if everything works out underneath it, I'm going to include that into that $4,800. If I can't, it'll be because of the airfare. Does that make sense? So. Yeah. Yes. I'm waiting for the tour company to give it. They're trying to secure the hotels as we're speaking. So, so the answer is yes. As soon as I have that, if you sign up, you say I'm interested. As soon as I get my information, it'll be packaged together. You'll get it. So, okay, good. That is, I don't know. Could you Google it today? Oh, spending money. Spending money. I don't know. What was ours? We we just sent them one check for the whole trip. It was in, I don't remember. I think I checked in $1,300 or $1,400, I think. It's we've traveled from Seattle, Frankfurt. That's 9 hours, 9-hour flight, and then a 4.5-hour flight from Frankfurt to Tel Aviv. And 3.5, 3.4, yeah, 3.5 shekels to the dollar right now. Right, so that's the current exchange rate today. So, you know, it's when we get closer, I could tell you, you know, and Bobby can too. I mean, you know, spending is all a matter of, you know, spend anything, or you can buy really cheesy, cheap stuff. I mean, my Seahawks T-shirt, I bought a bunch of them, and they were like, you know, $6 or something, and you know, yeah, you'll gain weight. No, you definitely won't. It yeah, it'll cool off a bit more than that. I think that, yeah, there's a huge change from, probably. Yeah, it's not going to be freezing, so yeah, it's not. Jerusalem was chillier, it's higher. You know, Golan Heights were a little chilly. But Timnah and down there was just, well, hot. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you're an air-conditioned bus or heated bus. You're in a air-conditioned hotels or heated hotels. Um, it's pretty comfortable. So there might be a little rain that in November. That was the one thing I looked up, and we could get a little rain. But you know, a little rain would have been okay on that trip. I would have been okay with that. Yeah, I did, and I don't remember what it was. I looked at it. I think when I looked. Oh yeah, we can handle that. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. That's a great question. It's a class on Wednesday nights here. Okay, we have a college institute here, and so I teach. So there'll be people that are in that class that are not going to Israel that are taking it for college credit, and so there's homework and all that. What I would like to see out of that is your attendance. I would prefer that you do the homework, but you don't have to, because you could just audit the course, and audit it means you don't have to do the homework. You just study it and do whatever you want, but attend. And anyways, yeah, hour and a half. Yeah, hour and a half class. 12. Yeah. Because I want to emphasize this is a study tour, and so we're going to study. We're gonna just unpack. You know, so when you get there, you're going to go, that's what that meant. That's what that meant. Yeah. And it'll be middle of January before we start. So I'll get, and that information is forthcoming. We haven't worked out the exact date schedule of that. So, but it'll be mid-January till March. Other questions? Read and briefly summarize. Oh, yeah, that will be, you read it and just tell me what you learned. Yeah, That's a great book. You know, it's interesting. We were required to read this when I went in April. I was kind of like, you know, of course, I'm not being a skeptic, but I was like, okay, what does that pertain to what I'm doing? And actually it was very applicable. So it was just helped me discern a lot of things, you know, and there was just more than just you're dealing with the negative spiritual stuff, but just understanding the spirit realm. And you walk into Jerusalem, I mean, it's spiritually buzzing. I mean, it's, if you'd want to say I say it's the most contested piece of real estate on the planet. I mean, every major war has been fought there, you know, in history. I mean, you're talking, it's been built and destroyed and built and destroyed more times than we can count. And yet still there's this tension of life there. And you know, and so it's just an experience in that sense that you can only walk into and realize that this is a unique, this isn't like any other location. People say, well, I can worship the Lord anywhere. Yes, you can. But you can only worship in Jerusalem when it's in Jerusalem. And it is a unique, and hear this, it is a special place. It is a special place. And you can tell it when you're there because of the spiritual dynamics that you just sense. And it goes from, it's so interesting. I went from amazement to anger to joy all in less than a quarter of a mile. And it was just, you know, that kind of dynamic. But that's our faith. You know, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the things that I came out of that, and by the way, there's, in dealing with Jesus, some of you are going to find this hard to, you know, get a hold of. When it comes to Jerusalem and Jesus, there's two of everything. There's two tombs. There's two Golgothas. And the truth is, they don't know. But we want to know. Well, guess what? So does everybody else in history. And when Constantine, the Roman emperor, converted to Christianity and his mother converted, his mom came to, you know, he's the emperor of Rome. I mean, he's the big guy. And she wants to go to Jerusalem. And so what does she do? She goes and brings an army with her. And basically, well, where's Jesus buried? Well, they think he's over here. Or we think he's over here. Was over here. Well, she goes, well, what do you think? Or what do you? I'm sure she sat around and she made a decision. It's there. That's the truth. That's, you know, Mike's Reader's Digest version. And they may be right. And there's evidence that it's probably the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But you go there, and if you're a person that loves Jesus and has the Spirit of the Lord in your life, you're like, I don't want it to be there. I want it to be over in the garden tomb where it's full of peace and worship and just like heaven. And I'm thinking, yeah, I want it to be this too, but I think it's actually the other one. But at the bathroom moment, please share that. We would love to hear your bathroom story in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Hold on. This is being videotaped.
The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a really intense place. There are a lot of people there. There's a lot of different faiths, Christian faiths. There are people that will be crying and joyful and sad and everything in between. And it's a rabbit warren of all kinds of different experiences. And somehow I made it into the bowels of the earth where there's stones that people were kissing and whatever they thought that meant. And I was kind of wandering on my own away from the group. And I managed, yeah, no, not in this case it wasn't, because I wandered around this corner and all of a sudden there was these really nice marble stairs and it led into this bathroom. Well, I happened to need to find a bathroom at the time. And there's a bunch of individual doors, probably 30 different bathroom doors. So I just went right into one, shut the door behind me without thinking, took care of what I needed to take care of, and turned around and leave, and there wasn't a doorknob on my side. There was a stem from the doorknob on the outside, and when I reached to grab it and see if I could turn it, it fell through the hole. And I was locked in the bathroom. And I'm going to tell you, I was in there for a while, and it was hot, and I was going to miss the deadline to meet everybody. And I was beating on the door and yelling as loud as I could, help, help. Now, I mean, I don't yell help for nothing, but I was yelling help. And I couldn't get out. And I finally realized that the hinges were on the inside of the door, and so I started trying to work the pins out of the hinges. And it wasn't easy. It was a big, big, heavy door. And I finally got one out and managed to wedge my foot in the crack under the door and get a little bit of the weight off the other hinge. Eventually got the second pin out, and the door was so heavy, all I could do was rotate it 180 degrees and boom onto the marble floor, and now I'm free. And just as I did that, some lady comes running out of the bathrooms next door and looked at me. And I don't know if she spoke English or not, but she looked terrified, and she ran down the stairs and around the corner. So I got locked in the bathroom at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
So, anyways, the interesting thing that I didn't think of, and I thought of it later, is, and I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while, and you know, no doubt that Church of the Holy Sepulchre is one of the most visited Christian sites in the world. So if you'd want to say pilgrimage, people want to go there, and it is a deeply spiritual experience, and I think we should never take away from people's acts of faith, even if it's in a form different than our own when it comes to Christ. And must always avoid saying, well, we shouldn't be like that. There is this tension there because there are 7 owners of, denominations that own the property, and they don't always get along. Matter of fact, there's a ladder that hasn't been moved for 50 years because one owns the ledge and the other owns the window, and they can't decide who is going to wash the window, and so the ladder stayed there. Actually, it was 200 years, I think. Anyways, it's been up there for a long time. It is as silly as it looks and sounds. That said, I walked away and I said, I was in Saudi Arabia. Mecca is the Hajj is the biggest thing in Islam. I mean, you have to go there. And I know I was in the country when people died in the Hajj because of the pushing and the shoving and just the throngs of people. And I asked her, Mickey, I said, how many people do you know have died here visiting the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? He goes, I've lived here since I've been a teenager. No one. So let's put it into proportion. Yeah, you get in there and there are a bunch of Christian brothers and sisters that can't get along and argue and fight and express their faith differently and and all that, and it smells like incense, and which I don't like anyways, but it's still, no one's dying there. So I think there's a measure that I think we overstate sometimes in the difference category. And I think that's important for us to recognize that not everybody's going to be exactly the way we are. And that's such a great example. Now, our tour guide, I told him, I said, I'm sorry, I have to lean towards, and boy, he was not happy. He thinks it's absolutely the garden tomb. And there's arguments for it, but I took biblical archaeology, and I lean that direction, that that's more likely. But we could be wrong. It could be the other. And by the way, we all could be wrong, and it could be somewhere else. It's the truth. It's 2,000 years, So, but some things are absolutely certain, and and when I was down in Caiaphas's house and I looked at our tour guide, I said, they hadn't declared anything. I said, they didn't even mention Caiaphas. And I said, I'm looking at the location to the Temple Mount. I'm looking at the Robinson Gate where the high priest would have entered. I said, that bridge would have landed at the end of this house. I said, this has got to be Caiaphas's house. I had said that. They didn't even once mention it to us. And Mickey or Tuger goes, yeah, they haven't declared it yet, but they're about ready to. This is Caiaphas' house. And the other thing is one of the ways that they can date things, and this is very important. One of the most reliable sources of archaeological dating, as strange as it sounds, is pottery. You know, everywhere you go, there's pottery shards. Everywhere. There's 8,000 years of pottery shards below. And so you kick the dirt on most sites, and there's little chunks of pottery. And there are certain potteries, styles, and the way it's flamed and the way that it's cooked, the way it's made, are very distinct to certain ages. And they can associate those with that pottery. And so the city of David and the fortress of David, where he entered, they found that recently, and it matches the dates. You know, everything from Babylonian pottery has been found in certain places where the wall has been knocked over, and just I could keep going. So those are facts that people don't realize. So anyways, any other questions? I could keep going. I want to wrap this up. You get to the airport yourself. Yeah, we leave from, but I'm sure we can carpool. I'm sure there's, collectively you can. Yeah, well, my responsibility to you is at SeaTac. So as a group, you guys can work together, and I have no doubt that yes, there's also the transporters. There's a number of rocket skitsat, so yeah. Did you pass around that sign-up sheet? Could you go ahead and just pass it around? If you're interested, please sign up before you leave, because that's how I will communicate from this point on, via email preferably. If you don't have email, then put your address, but we would prefer email. Any other questions? No, it's from SeaTac to Frankfurt, and then Frankfurt to Tel Aviv. To be announced. Yeah, we had to read a book, and we were both in agreement. We weren't really fans of that particular book, so we'll come up with. I've got several other options that I want to pick one that it's reachable for you.